Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. In today's video, we are talking to you about the new movie Weapons. This is very much a very much anticipated movie of mine as of lately, and I very much look forward to telling you about our thoughts. We're going to start with non-spoiler first, give the movie a rating, and then we'll talk about some spoilers with the film. Uh, so just to kind of have a base understanding of what's going on here, what we get from the trailer is that, there's this one night that a whole bunch of kids went missing, specifically at 2:17, and
AM.
yeah, AM, and they're all from the same classroom, and parents are upset about, what happened in that one classroom that made all of our kids go missing. And so, coming into this movie, it's like, okay, what is going on here? What caused all of these kids to go out at the exact same minute, from the exact same classroom? And so, it was an interesting movie to go into because it had kind of like a horror appeal to it from the trailer, but this isn't a horror movie that I think you're gonna be disgusted by. I mean, there is some violence in the movie, I will say, but it's not a slasher, it's not Saw, um, it's not filled with petty jump scares. There are some earned ones, I will tell you that. But it was a very, very solid horror film, and I'm I'm very happy that we got to see it, and I'm very happy that it paid off for me. Um,
Two small notes with that. One is I think it's very interesting. The movie's over 2 hours long. That's pretty unheard of for a horror movie. I feel like horror movies are usually a lot shorter. And two is why is it called Weapons? And that's something we'll dive into with the spoilers, but that's something that, as I watched the trailer, I was like, I don't see anything from the trailer that relates to weapons. And so it had me really curious on how they were going to tie that in.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder because, I mean, even throughout the film, we probably didn't really get an answer until in the second half. So even during the movie, it is constantly making you wonder what is happening. And this isn't a spoiler, but the beginning of the movie, there's like I even think the kid is the one that does the monologue in the trailer, but basically there's a kid that's talking to us uh as the audience saying like, in this small town, something crazy happened. The town even wants to cover it up. And in that little um in that little blurb, the kid is really setting things up to feel like an interesting horror film. It kind of feels like we're opening up a storybook, which is kind of an interesting way to do it based on the way that this movie is outlined. Because the movie, it's not just a straight, you know, beginning to end, and then we just have a continuous timeline moving. It is very much segmented where we have different chapters, quote unquote, where we're seeing different points of view from different characters. And I thought that was a very interesting way to approach the film. And not only was it interesting to see different points of views, but the way that they orchestrated the points of views was really cool too. So, like the beginning is what we know from the trailer, right? And honestly, I think the majority of the trailer is in the first chapter or character's point of view. But then when we shift to the second person, we see a little bit of what we saw from their perspective in the previous one, but then it also makes the movie go forward a little bit. And then when we get to the next one, they show a little bit of what we've seen already from a point of view and they progress it. And I thought that was a very, very effective way of not only us as the audience member, we're wondering what's happening, right? What is going on in this story? But, we see the first piece. Then when we get to the second piece, we get a couple of answers and a couple more questions. The next piece, a couple more answers, a couple more questions. And it just snowballs all the way into the end where everything comes together. And honestly, it was a great movie.
It's a lot of hey, I wonder why this character is behaving this way or doing these things. And then, once we jump to that character, you kind of get some backstory as to why they're doing whatever it is that they're doing. And so the overlap is very minimal, but it's just enough to be effective to let you know, like, oh, that's why they were behaving this certain way, or that's why they were trying to accomplish these tasks, or whatever it is that they were doing.
Right. And I will say it's a twist on the whodunit type of movie too. We've recently gotten a handful of these that just weren't as effective. Like I Know What You Did Last Summer. That's a whodunit film that wasn't very effective. This is a movie where we're like, what is going on here? Like, who is like you don't know if it's a single person, you don't know if the whole town is doing something, you don't know if it's just people in their own minds doing things. Like, those were a ton of different things I was wondering while watching the film. Like, it it was a very, very cool experience to be a part of. And like you said, it was over 2 hours. It did not feel like it was 2 hours to me because I felt like the movie just like when we were at the drive-in and it drives me nuts when people turn their lights on, but people were turning their lights on and cars were moving and I was like, what's going on? And other movies were ending, and I was like, holy crap, are we like really an hour and a half to 2 hours into this movie already? And it just because it felt like it moved. They keep your attention span just long enough for each of these characters and have like a little cliffhanger at each of their chapters, quote unquote, to make you want to see the next one. And then just as things are wrapping up with that one, you want to know what's going on with the next one. And there aren't any dull characters where like the focus or their chapter, you're like, oh, I really don't want to know what's going on with this character. Like you end up caring about each of these characters enough to the point of what is this person up to? And then you see the next person involved. What is this person up to? And I think they just did a really good job of keeping you invested, um, and progressing the story just enough to keep you there but not give it all away right away, too.
There's one character I wish we could have seen some more from. It's not somebody that we focus on, and I'm gonna kind of leave it vague like that, and we can talk more about it in spoilers. But I feel like they had maybe some insider information that it would have been neat to see what's going on in their brain. And at the same time, maybe it would have kind of ruined the plot line because, then you'd find out some stuff before you're really supposed to. But I don't know, it still is driving me nuts. Like, what was this person? Uh, we talked about how when we go from one character to the next, it's kind of seeing like why was this person behaving this way or what were they trying to accomplish. There's one character we didn't do that with, and I wish we could have seen what they were up to or what they were doing.
Maybe it was cut. Like what if this movie was like 2.5 hours long and they're like, well, you know what, we got to cut somebody here. Who's gonna get the chopping block? Um, yeah. Anything else you want to say non-spoiler-ish?
I feel like the vibes were creepy. I think they did a good job in terms of like music and stuff. I don't remember like a particular song or like beat or tone or anything like that other than just creepy. So I feel like that was effective. The movie is very dark. As Jeremy said, we saw it at the drive-in, so that kind of, makes it a little worse because as the moon's coming up, it makes it a little harder to see. But it is a very dark film. Um, we didn't talk about actors at all. Um,
Very,
there's a
very well
handful
done.
of familiar faces, but not like super popular faces, I'll say. Not ones that have been in very like big things in the last couple of years. But I remember we saw our main actress, she's from what was that werewolf movie?
Wolfman?
Yes, Wolfman, thank you. And we've got the guy from Solo, which I think is Alden Ehrenreich. I have
Yeah.
no idea how to say his last name. I just probably butchered it. But the guy from Solo, he plays Han Solo. And then Jeremy, there was one other one that or two others that I know you recognized. One from Doctor Strange and one from um Marvel.
Yeah, I mean the Marvel one is you have to recognize him by his voice a little bit more, but Josh Brolin, who played Thanos, he was in this, and I don't know the guy's name, so I'm going through the cast.
Benedict Wong, who played
But
Marcus.
interesting, he's not even on like the. Oh, there he is. His picture is like very small. So yeah, Benedict Wong, he was in. Man, that must have been hard to. Do you think they used last names for Doctor Strange because he had Benedict Cumberbatch and Benedict Wong?
I didn't think about that, yeah.
Yeah, and all of these actors and actresses, both adults and kids, they did a great job with this film. There was nobody that had like a poor performance and pulled you out of the film at all. It was very, very consistent with, just having the eeriness and the unsettlingness of all the things that are going on. Uh, for instance, we know from the trailer that the parents are very, very adamant on what happened in that classroom, and they start pointing fingers at the teacher, and so the teacher is having a rough time, and the lead actress, Julia Gardner, she did great, showing that anxiety emotion. She didn't really give off any spoiler vibes in the very beginning of, maybe what is her character up to, or is she up to nothing? It's very, very I would say real emotion and franticness and looking over your shoulder as much as possible because the town has their eyes on you. I think she did a great job with that. Josh Brolin plays more of a character where, he's one of the parents of the kids that had gone missing, and he's very adamant on trying to figure out what's going on because the police aren't doing anything about it. So he does a good job there. Um, Alden, again, I don't know how to pronounce that last name just like you. Um, but his character's going through a lot. He does a great job. Same thing with Benedict Wong. His character, all the characters are going through like their own types of anxieties and tensions. It's really interesting to like break it down that way and think about that. Um, we'll be able to talk about that more in the spoilers, but wow. Yeah, just a lot of good things happening here. And unfortunately, we can't tell you what was so amazing because it's the non-spoilers at the moment. So, what would you give the movie out of 10?
I'm feeling a pretty solid 8.5. I know you can't do half, so I'm gonna go with an 8. It's a great film. I don't necessarily have like a pinpoint answer for not rating it higher. This is just kind of where I feel the film falls for me. I feel like it was a great film. There's some unanswered questions that to some people they might say like, well, that's the point of a film is to make you question more. And I'm a big believer on like if a film makes you feel something, that's saying something. And so like I get that, but at the same point I don't know, my gut doesn't say I can go any higher than that.
That's fair. So we've talked a lot about, on our scale, does certain scores mean that the movie's perfect? And the answer is no, because I don't think the movie was perfect by any means. But I am gonna go with my first official 10 out of 10 movie of the year. That kind of comes with an asterisk because I did see a movie that I didn't do a review on from the movie theaters that I think would be a 10 out of 10 as well, which would be F1. But I saw that movie like 3 or 4 weeks after it had come out, so I didn't do a video on it. But this is my first official here on YouTube 10 out of 10 for the year, and it's very much for a lot of the reasons that I specified. The reason why I would say it's not perfect is I think towards the end there was a couple of scenes that were kind of weird or awkward that, you know, could have been cut shorter or maybe could have been more effective. But I feel like with the way that everything was done, the as far as the way the film was presented, how it was a little bit here, a little backtrack, a little bit more here. I really liked that style. I really liked the curiosity that I had the entire time, and nothing pulled me out of the film. And I just feel like it's one of those horror films that probably needs a lot more attention um, to be recognized for what they accomplished. So
I'm
this
gonna
is
say one more thing before we get to spoilers. Because I feel like this is a fair thing to say that's not a spoiler, is we talked about how there's like a young girl who kind of narrates parts of the movie. I don't know what it was about her. It just kind of drove me nuts. Probably because we never actually focus on her character. And I think one of the things that would have made this film better is as we bounce from character to character, if we could have heard their inside thoughts instead of this little girl.
yeah, that could have been interesting, and I do think you make a good point that it would have been kind of cool to see her perspective because when I looked at IMDb, I was like, I don't recognize that person at all. Like, I don't remember seeing her on screen. And so
Well, and she very well could have been one of the kids that went missing, which, we don't see them hardly at all.
that's true, but we have a handful of like flashback scenes where we see classrooms and whatnot, and it would have been maybe it did happen, but I don't think it's as obvious as it could have been. Just granted that I don't recall. And when we were watching the movie and the scenes were playing out, I didn't go, "Oh, that's the narrator," because hearing the voice and connecting it to a character. So because we didn't really ever have that, I feel like it could have been more effective.
And if it was one of the kids that went missing, we definitely don't hear her describing what she was doing, thinking, or feeling while she was missing.
Right.
So,
All right.
anyway, I just wanted to get that in there before we jump to spoilers.
Yep, and we're gonna roll into the spoilers right now. So, this movie, like we talked about, is it's kind of a whodunit. It starts off with the premise, it progresses, it goes back, progresses more, goes back, and eventually we lead up to, towards the end, the grand finale where it all comes together. Like I said in the beginning, we know that these kids went missing at 2:13 2:17 a.m. I don't know why I said 13. It's 17. 2:17 a.m. We had a whole bunch of kids just run out of their houses and head in one particular direction. And so then the family members are up in arms about it, asking about why is it from a specific classroom? What is the teacher doing? And then, we start the movie off with the first character, which was the teacher. Was her name Justine?
Yep.
And what we learn about Justine is that she she doesn't know why all this stuff is going on. At least that's what she's leading us to believe. And she's kind of going through a lot of anxieties with looking over her shoulder. She goes home one night and I think she was in the middle of making dinner or doing something in the kitchen, and then somebody pounds on her door, and she thinks someone's messing with her, and then you know she's very, very on edge. Um,
Which part of it I think is from her alcoholism, like
Yep.
she's intoxicated. But part of it's also very real because somebody does paint the word witch on her car and she can't get it off. Like it's like super permanent paint.
right. And so, this starts like it's great you pointed out the alcoholism. It starts to make us wonder, like when I was talking in the non-spoilers, is this something where everybody has their own individual like weapons and this is kind of a mental health film? She's very much, you know, drinking a lot. So is that maybe her weapon? And so as we start to progress throughout the film, we see that other people have their own abuses that they do within themselves. And so I had kind of wondered, is that where this movie was going? But it wasn't. So that's just kind of one of those different things that you think about while you're watching the film. Um, I don't remember exactly what happens in each individual's thing, just because of there is so much of the backtrack and progress, and they overlap so much. Um, I don't even remember who was the next one Archer?
Uh, I believe so. And then it was Marcus, and then it was Paul,
Okay. Well, I
I
guess we're
think.
just gonna do our best to just do the storyline, in order. So yeah, Justine gets the word witch written on her car. She doesn't know who did it. She even opens the door, like her house door, almost immediately after someone knocked on it, and it was like nobody was there. She went outside to go. She left the door open. Don't do that. But she went outside to try to see who was around, didn't see anybody, and that's when she noticed the painting on her car saying witch. She does try to get it off in the morning, trying to scrub it, like Sarah said. There's zero luck. Um, we do see that she has a connection to, is it Paul?
Yep.
Paul is a young police officer. This is our Solo character, Han Solo. Uh, we see her like wave to him as he's in the parking lot, and then they meet up for drinks later. He is a recovering alcoholic, and so, when she gets a drink at the bar and she tries to order him something and he says, "Oh, I'll have a Coke," it kind of rubs her the wrong way that she's drinking alone at that point, but at the same time, trying to respect what happens with him. But then, we get like this immediate camera or timeline shift where it's the next morning and she's waiting for him to get up. Clearly, they had gone back to her place and um, done some of their own stuff that night. But the bigger thing here is that he clearly was ended up drinking that night. Um, they were both even at the bar talking to each other, like worried about who's gonna drive people home because he thought she was drunk, and then I think she kind of knew that he was gonna fall victim to drinking anyways, but they did make it back to her place. Um, let's see. So then he he leaves, he goes back to his house. And, it's kind of that morning walk of shame kind of a thing where he walks in the house, he's does not look put together. And his wife, yes, he's married, his wife, um, comes downstairs just like it's a normal day. She's checking the mail, trying to have a conversation with him. She's like, where were you? Like, very casual, just kind of curious where he was that morning. And then he's very silent, and she kind of pieces it together that he's at least been drinking. Um, but what we find out later in the movie is that Justine goes to the gas station to go get some alcohol, and in the process of all that, Paul's wife shows up and like confronts her, and she finds out that they were sleeping together. So a lot of tension is building for the Justine character and also Paul's character. Any thoughts on mixing in there? Because, like I said, part of me wonders if with all the back and forth, if I'll start to miss some pieces. Is there anything crucial with these characters at least? Because there is some other stuff with other characters.
I think that's enough with these characters for now. We'll come back to Paul when we're talking about his timeline and stuff, but his interactions with Justine you wrapped up pretty good.
I will say also with Paul's character, so I mentioned he's a cop. His dad is also on the force, and so there is this kind of
He's like the chief of
weird,
police.
yeah. So he's higher up. There's kind of this weird family dynamic, like um they were talking about a family dinner, and Paul was mentioning how I think he said his wife could go now, and the dad was like, "Oh, I didn't think she was gonna be able to come," and it was very weird. Like it seemed like maybe the family members don't like each other as much, or maybe his dad isn't as fond of his wife. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of weird.
Well, he also told Justine that he wasn't with his wife anymore and that they were getting separated,
Yep.
which obviously was a lie because the wife seemed very normal. So
Right.
either life is normal and he was just lying to Justine, or the wife is delusional and trying to make everything seem like it's fine when it's not.
Yeah. So it's kind of just one of those family dynamics that us as the audience member is like, this is really awkward. Like we're piecing things together and we know it's not good news. Kind of at the same time, if we switch over to Archer, which again is a Josh Brolin character, we do know very much that he's one of the people that stood up at the meeting about, the children have gone missing, and he's like pointing the finger at the teacher. So he's very adamant on figuring out what is going on and also where his son is because his son went missing. What we learn about him, aside from that, is that he the contractor? He's the guy in charge of building houses.
I think so.
So he goes to a site and I think they say like someone painted something wrong and they had the wrong color, even though it was on the paper that they were given. And what we learn is that the paint that Archer ends up taking from that site is the paint that was used to write witch on the teacher's car. And we also see that he's kind of stalking her house or her at times too. The thing that we don't, at least I didn't quite understand was he the one knocking on the door? Because if he was, I don't see how he could run that fast and she wouldn't be able to see him from the one that she opened the door.
I don't entirely know, and I don't think we're supposed to know. Same with who actually wrote which on her car. Was it him? Was it somebody else just using that paint that he happened to take from the job site? I couldn't tell you. But
My
one,
thoughts are that it was him, but you could be
yeah.
right, could be somebody else.
Well, he's very, very suspicious of her, as you kind of alluded to, and he doesn't really have any proof that it's her, but he doesn't have any proof that it's anybody else either. So she's kind of like the number one lead, except that he's got like a ring camera, and so he uses the trajectory of what way his son ran away from home, and he talks to another parent and is able to look at their video and uses their trajectory for where they ran away from home. And he's like drawing these lines on a map to see like, okay, if they both ran in a straight line until they intersected, where would they have gone? And it's just this random house, and he doesn't really understand whose house it is or why they would go there or anything.
Yep. And also what we get, I think it was from Archer's like chapter in the story. Um, he's watching this teacher, he's approaching her, he decides to confront her at the gas station when she goes to get gas. And he approaches her and she's, it's kind of a hostile conversation because she's like, I know you don't like me, blah blah blah, and he's basically saying like, I'm not here to harm you. I'm just here to have a conversation. Trying to de-escalate things a little bit, but then she gets distracted and this is from the trailer, I believe too. At least part of the scene is she sees this person running towards them, and as the person gets closer and closer, she realizes it's the principal from the school that she works at. And he has something messed up with his face, and he charges towards her and he's trying to attack her. And then we switch to the next person's story. And so, what we gather from that piece, at least, is that Archer is piecing together that it's not her. Like somebody, like something else is going on and they're trying to attack her. So that's kind of where Archer de-escalates from the idea that it's the teacher that's involved as opposed to being something else.
Think the only other thing he gets from her, because their timeline together kind of jumps ahead a little bit too, is that she, after seeing the map that he put together, she tells him, that's the house of the one remaining kid, the one kid that didn't go missing, that's his house. And so they go there to kind of watch and investigate and see what's going on. And I'll leave what happens when they get to that house for like the end of the film because it's really kind of at the very end.
Yeah, where everything comes together. Let's see. So then we also have the principal story. Let's see, what was his name again? Principal Marcus.
Marcus.
And so Marcus, he's part of the investigation of trying to find out what happened. He wants to make sure that, that the right stuff is conveyed as far as information. He's trying to protect Justine at the same time because he knows people are very, very adamant that she did something, even though nothing has been proven. And so during this process, he's been part of the process of investigating why there is one kid left in the room. Alex, was that his name?
I think you're right. Yeah.
So, when the cops are asking Alex all these questions, the principal is involved, and at some point, the principal needs to do, he suggests talking with the parents to see what's going on, and just so he doesn't have to call CPS and, because the son is acting a little, or Alex is acting a little odd, so he wants to talk to the parents. Well, upon request, it's not the parent that shows up. It's somebody else. And what was her name? Start with a G.
It was Gladys.
So Gladys shows up, and she tells the principal that she is Alex's aunt, and the principal is telling her, you know, really can't talk to you about these things. I really have to talk to the parents. Is there no way that they could come in? And she's telling him, oh, they're sick. They're trying to stay home so that they can recover. But, I can be a representative or a guardian of Alex and talk to you about all these different things. And, he keeps pushing, like, really can't do that. And so, he wants to be able to talk to Alex's parents. Uh, so they kind of end on not the greatest terms. She doesn't get what she wants in being the person to represent Alex, and the principal, in fact, wants to talk to the parents. So he goes home, and it's the weekend, and we see that he has a partner. They're sitting at home watching TV, and someone knocks on the door, and it's this aunt that shows up again, Gladys. She shows up, and it's very weird. He's like, "Why are you showing up to my house?" And she's saying, "Well, can I come in? Can I just have a glass of water?" And he's like, "No, you really can't." And Marcus's partner is like, "Of course you can come in," and it's like, "Oh my God, why did you do this?" And she doesn't she specifically ask for a bowl of water, or was it a
I don't
glass of
recall that.
water? It was kind of weird that it was a bowl given to her, so I didn't know if she asked for a bowl or not.
That went way over my head. I didn't even notice it.
Oh, um, I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering wrong. I'm pretty sure it was a bowl. But they go to the kitchen, and the partner gets Gladys some water, and she's talking to the principal, and the principal is really uncomfortable, and she takes out this stick and she cuts her hand, and he's like, "Why did you do that? Like, what is wrong with you?" And she's like rubbing her blood all over this stick, and she walks up to Marcus's partner with a pair of scissors and cuts off his hair. And he's like, "What the heck? What's going on here? This is really weird now." And she wraps his hair around the stick, and then she snaps it. And what that does is she has some sort of way of controlling the principal. And when she snaps that stick and someone's hair is on it, that person goes to kill that person. And so we get a fairly graphic scene here, I would say. Some of it was slightly off camera, and it was mostly us just hearing what's happening. But Marcus pins his partner to the ground, chokes him out, and headbutts him until he's dead. And it's constant, like probably hit him like 10 times. And then,
Just another one of these scenes where they take it so far extra just to make you extra uncomfortable.
right. But at the same time, would it take that many times to hit him to make sure he's dead? I don't know. I don't know the anatomy of hitting two heads together and with the amount of force. Um, so this is actually where Marcus has the thing that's wrong with his face, his head. Um, so the next part we'll talk about is kind of our way of going back to something because this is something that we didn't mention. Um, So when she breaks the stick, she can throw it in water and it stops the little hypnosis thing that's going on. Um, but she can also wrap someone else's hair on it and break a stick again and, have these people be under control and go kill somebody else. Well, earlier in the film, there was a scene where Justine went into her car, and I think it was when she was drunk or something. Like she just wanted to spend the night out there. I don't remember
I
exactly.
think she was stalking Alex's house, but she didn't actually leave the car. She just got drunk and passed out.
And during this time, somebody ran up to her car when she was sleeping, got in the back seat with a pair of scissors, and cut her hair, and she never woke up. So if you fall asleep in your car, think about that. Um, But this is where we find out like, when she's in the kitchen with Marcus and Marcus has just killed his partner, she takes out the hair from Justine, wraps it around a twig, snaps it, and now the principal is running to Justine to go kill her. And this is why, when they were at the gas station, Justine and Archer, and we see the principal running towards her, that was the reason why, because of the little spell. So, because we're starting to piece all this stuff together, we know what is going on. There is a witch in the area, and that is Gladys, and she is controlling people with some sort of magic hypnosis type deal. So then things start to spill into the gas station. Do you want to cover what happened in the gas station? Like in the building?
Just that the principal was attacking her.
Yeah.
I don't know what more there is to say about that other than the principal was attacking her.
So they did like a run around in the gas station. Justina's running from them. She tries to go through a door. The door is locked, so she's not able to go through it. And then she turns another corner, runs down an aisle, and I think it was Archer that um, basically like does a football tackle and rams him into the like refrigerated section and breaks a bunch of glass. I think it was Archer that did that, if not a bystander. But then, like,
I think you're right. She's able to make it to her car, and so she's driving away, but the guy's still running after her. And at this point, Archer's in his car, and it almost seems like he's gonna run over the principal just to get him to stop. But before he even gets the opportunity, the principal runs into oncoming traffic, and he dies there.
yeah, uh, definitely dead when they show the image of him. Um, so, couple other characters that we should mention, because the principal was kind of there to introduce us to, Gladys and what is going on with her. Um, we also have there's two other characters that have a pretty significant amount of time here, and it's Paul and this druggy character. What was his name? James.
Probably.
So there's this like druggie that you know, hangs out in the front of the gas station asking for money. He lives in a tent out in the middle of the woods. And also what he does is he tries to like break into buildings, break into cars to steal money, typical thief stuff. And at one point he gets seen by Paul. Paul sees James trying to break into a building and chases him down. and with his cop car, and then eventually he gets out of the car and he chases him down, holds him down, and everything seems pretty cool at this point. He's like, okay, we're just gonna do a routine thing here, and he has James up against the police car and he's putting on gloves so he can check pockets and he asks James, "Is there anything in your pockets that will stab me or harm me?" And James says, "No, I have nothing on me." And he asks him a couple times and James still denies it. And when Paul goes to reach into James's pocket, he does in fact get stabbed by a needle. And this causes Paul to freak out and he just immediately punches him right across the face. Like, I feel like that's a genuine human reaction. Like, you would be so pissed at what just happened that you would just clock the guy. But he's a police officer, right? You can't have violence on the citizens. And his dash cam was on. And so he's freaking out like crazy.
Well, and also, why didn't he pat the outside of the pocket first to realize there's something in the pocket?
I thought he did. He patted him a little, quite a bit on the
I
outside
don't know,
before he
because
went
it
in,
seemed
but.
like he got poked from like a syringe, and I feel like you'd be able to feel on the outside of the pocket, hey, there's a syringe in your pocket.
Yeah, I agree, but at the same time, I am not a cop, and I don't know if that's as obvious as I think it would be.
Yeah.
Um,
He
so
was
needless to
wearing
say,
jeans.
what?
I said he was wearing jeans. At
Yeah,
least I think he was, so those are pretty thick.
yeah. So when Paul punches James and knocks him out, and so he's trying to get him to wake up. He also tries to clean up his finger. He's using like disinfectant type stuff, and he's worried about, does this druggie have like AIDS? Do I need to be worried about getting AIDS now? And when he wakes him up, he basically says to him like, "Hey, you wronged me. I wronged you. We're gonna never talk about this again. But if I see you out here again, we're gonna have trouble." And they kind of have this understanding. And so uh, James, he, let's see, he eventually he goes and he's trying to steal different things and he stumbles across this house and he goes in the house, he breaks in and he's looking for just random stuff. He even takes the pillowcase off of a pillow so he has a sack to just stuff things in. He's been going to pawn shops trying to sell things and they don't want it, what he want or what he has, so he decides to break into a house. Um, and when he's in this house, he eventually stumbles across these two people that are sitting on a couch and basically just staring straight ahead. And he's walking up to them, he's snapping in front of their face, trying to see if he can get a reaction. Nothing. And so he continues to go about his business a little bit, and he hears something going on up top, like upstairs. He's like, what the heck? But again, he goes back to his rating of the house, and we see as an audience member in the background that those two people stand up and try to attack him. And from this, it freaks him out, and he runs out of the house. And he during this time, and he's in the house, he also sees in the basement a whole bunch of kids, the kids that went missing. And so not only does he know that information, but these people are trying to kill him. He runs out of the house. He takes the stuff that he stole. He takes it to the pawn shop, which I think was silverware, and maybe it was legitimately made out of silver. And so, he's trying to get money for that, but he sees behind the pawn shop dealer this poster that says $50,000 reward for information on missing children and he recognizes one of them. And so he's like, huh, $50,000? I just saw a whole bunch of kids in that house. And so after he gets, I don't know, 100 bucks or something from the pawn shop dealer, he gets himself some drugs, makes himself feel a little bit better, and then he contacts the police station and says, yo, I know where these kids are at. I saw there's a reward for $50,000. How can we make this work? And so he's heading towards the police station, and he even requests that somebody meets him outside of the police station because he's afraid of police officers. And when he's on his way to the police station, Paul sees him, and Paul is like, I told you to never come here again. And so he hops in his car and he chases after him. And my goodness, this dude definitely doesn't have asthma, the drug dealer, because he runs and runs and runs. And he runs into the woods where, his tent is. But also, when he's on his way to his tent, he sees like this woman out in the woods and it's creeping him out. And he's like, what the heck? And it's, maybe he's tripping. Who knows from his drugs? And so he runs to his tent. He gets inside, he zips it down, and he grabs a handful of needles. Like, I'm ready if someone comes at my tent. And someone walks up to the tent and he's going to unzip. And I even said in the car when we were at the drive-in, I said, I bet you that's the police officer. And, because the druggie, he thinks it's that woman that he just saw in the woods. And so unzip, someone tries to come in and immediately the druggie stabs. It is the cop. He stabs him right in the face with three needles, and it really upsets the cop again. It was really weird though, because the cop pulls them out and it looks like he doesn't bleed. That was
Yeah, I
kind of
thought that was
weird.
really odd.
Um,
Because he never patches himself up or anything either. Like he mentions like, do you have any STDs or anything like that that I need to be worried about? And he goes, well, no, not that I've been tested for. It's like, oh, well, that's reassuring. But
right.
he's never like bleeding or like trying to patch up or put a Band-Aid on or anything. It's like he's fine.
Yeah. So it's kind of a weird thing, but I've never put a needle in my face before. I don't know if there'd be a lot of blood or not. So, um, it was kind of weird for sure. Um, but
Even just the force of the stab, I think, would be enough to eh, cause something to happen.
and you would
At
think it would
least
go
need a
very deep.
bandage.
Yeah. So the police officer, Paul, he wants to basically kill James for all these needles that he's stabbing into him. And James says, I know where those kids are at, the 17 kids that are missing. And the officer's like, you do? And so um, he takes James. James tells him where to drive to. And Paul gets out of the car, the cruiser, and James is like, yo, how are we going to settle this? Like, how am I going to get my $50,000? You're not going to take it, are you? And he just leaves James in the car. And so um, Paul, he goes into the house. And as an audience member at this point, we are with James. We're right there in the cop car with him, waiting to see what happens. And daytime turns to nighttime, so he's been in there hours. And we see off in the distance that the front door opens and that Paul comes out of the house. He comes up to the cruiser and he pulls James out of the cruiser. He's not talking. And James is like, what the heck is going on here? And Paul basically pulls him into the house. And that's basically their two stories. And then we have one more major story, which is Alex, the son, the one kid that is still there in the classroom. Did you want to cover Alex or did you want me to keep going?
I'll try to piece it together. Um, so with Alex, we kind of almost jumped to the very beginning of the story. Like we backtrack quite a bit, but we also move through his story pretty fast. So it's, I mean, we take a solid hour and a half to get to his point. It's not like we're not needing another hour and a half to see his side of things. But as we had learned earlier, well, I guess from his point of view, was that his aunt was coming to stay because she was sick and she needed help, which is the opposite is what Gladys had told the school was that the parents were sick and she was there to help them. But nobody really knows this aunt very well, and it there's not a whole lot of details even as to who she is, and it kind of makes you wonder, is she even the aunt at all, or is she just some stranger that they were told was their aunt? Because nobody, even the parents, don't really know her. But she I'm just gonna dive right into, I guess, to her main plot line because even though this is from Alex's point of view, it's very heavy on the aunt, on Gladys, as far as what, she's doing. It's just from what he sees as a kid. So she's controlling the parents. She's got them zombified, if you will, where they just don't really do anything but sit there. And she's manipulating the crap out of Alex of, you're not going to tell anybody that I'm here. You're not going to tell anybody that your parents are acting weird like this. She like snaps her twig or something, and the parents start stabbing themselves in the face with a fork. And then they stop because she drops the twig in some water because at this point the kid's just like he's freaked out, he doesn't know what to do, but then he sees his parents hurting themselves, and the only person who can make it stop is this lady. So I guess I better pay attention to what she says because I don't want her to make my parents hurt themselves again.
This is another scene that I think probably should have been more gory than it was. I feel like there would have been a bit more blood with how many times they stabbed themselves in the face.
Yeah, it was pretty intense, and at the same time I feel like you even though I didn't want to see more because I'm not a big fan of gore, but I feel like it should have been more gory than it was. If you stab yourself in the face with a fork, multiple times over and over and over and over, there's bound to be some like flesh peeling and stuff. And I don't know, I don't remember even seeing blood pour down. It's kind of weird. But
Hmm.
again, it's a dark movie. At this point, they have all the windows covered up with like newspapers and stuff, so the house is pretty dark itself because she's trying to hide what's going on. But this is why when, Alex is talking to the cops and the school and everything about what's going on, he's pretending like he has no idea about anything that's going on, even though he knows exactly what's going on. And so some time goes by, and at this point, the kids aren't missing yet, but the aunt is saying something to him along the lines of, I thought your parents would make me feel better, but they didn't. But you can make me feel better, and what I need you to do is to get something from each of your classmates and bring it home to me. And he hates his classmates because they're bullies to him, and he's kind of the kid that gets picked on for no reason at all. And nobody really stands up for him or anything. It doesn't seem like he has any friends. And so he's looking around the room, and the easiest thing he finds to get something from everybody is these like name tags on their cubbies. So he brings that home to the aunt, and I guess because she has a belonging of that person, of that child, that's how she's able to control them. Because at 2:17 in the morning, she uses some sort of potion mixture, if you will, some witch magic voodoo to make all those kids come to the house. Now, in terms of how they're supposed to make her feel better, or like how she gets power from them, or youth, or any of those stereotypical things that would like, that a witch would want to have more people for, I don't think we ever really find out what it is, aside from the fact that she likes chaos and she likes making people kill other people. Do we ever find, do you ever pick up on like a reason as to why she's doing all this stuff other than
Yeah.
to make herself feel better?
Yes. So it's basically she's dying and she's trying to use her magic to, rejuvenate herself a bit. And the two parents didn't do the trick because she was starting to look a little younger, but then she like backtracked quite a bit and
Hmm.
she was looking sickly and old. And so she was, hoping that the 17 youth children, would be enough to, you know, prolong her life.
I gotcha.
Which I don't I'm assuming that this is a tongue-in-cheek kind of Easter egg, but you know what time they came?
2:17.
That was the two sets of people that she controlled. It was the two parents and then the 17 children.
That did not occur to me until just now when you said what you said. That is crazy.
Because you could also argue, well, she controlled Marcus, but Marcus wasn't used to try to rejuvenate herself. It was the two parents and the 17 children.
Right.
Just a
Um,
fun little Easter egg I thought of.
yeah, for sure. One other thing to note, I guess, as far as like how these hostages are staying alive because they're all in like a zombie type state where they just stand around, they can't talk, they don't make any noise, they don't sleep, they don't do anything. But she forces Alex to feed them all soup so that we get a lot of scenes of him just like feeding his parents soup and feeding the kids soup too, which is kind of sad in a way because I mean it's a third grader, like he barely knows how to even open the can of soup, let alone to feed his parents soup. You know how hard it is to feed somebody else soup?
I am so sorry. I just thought of another. I had an epiphany.
Let's hear it.
Although, there's one thing is gonna make it. Never mind. I was thinking about the 217, how there was the two people to rejuvenate, but I was like, what was AM? Was there people like there was Marcus for the M? What would the A be? Well, didn't she control Archer at some point towards the end of the movie too?
Eventually, yes.
She did, but then there was also the druggie and Paul. So,
Yeah. And the parents and all the kids.
well, parents.
Alex's parents.
Well, yeah, but they were part of the 2 a.m. or 217.
Right. Oh, I see what you're saying.
I don't know. I'm trying to piece together something that probably isn't, but I don't know. It's fun. Sorry.
That's
Back
all
to
right.
our back to our main program.
So we'll kind of skip to the end of the film, right? So that was like the backstory of Alex and why he's doing what he's doing. We talked a lot about every time we go to a new character, it's kind of explaining why were they doing or acting the way that they were, and then let's progress the story a little farther, right? So that's why he wasn't telling anybody about anything that's going on. He's acting like he's got no idea, even though he's known the whole time because he doesn't want his parents to hurt themselves, and he's the the Gladys lady, she says that if he brings her these kids, these things, and the kids make her feel better, then she'll go away, she'll go home. And so in his eyes, it's this is how I save my parents. Because I mean, he's a third grader. He's gullible. He's gonna believe her that she's telling the truth of this is my only way to make her go home. Um, So now she's got the kids, and we've got the police Paul there, and we've also got Justine and Archer in a car outside, kind of watching what's going on, not really sure. I think they were wanting to do some intervention, but they saw that the police were already there, so they don't want to get mixed in with the police. They see Paul come outside, uh, but I didn't fully grasp what they saw other than Paul coming outside. 'Cause she recognized that Paul was there. They must have seen him bring the guy from the back seat of the car into the house, but for whatever reason they go in the house. And this is kind of where everything, it's like the one last hurrah where everything goes down.
Well, I mean, that's the house that all the children led to is, and they just saw something weird, so that's probably why they're heading towards the house. Like, we just saw that happen. Maybe there is something going on here with the kids. I mean, a
Yeah.
freaking police officer just dragged somebody in the house.
Yep. So we've got a lot of different moving components in this. One is, Justine is trying to figure out, Paul, what are you doing? Paul is, hypnotized or zombified, so he's trying to kill her, so that's not fun to deal with. We've got Archer who is trying to help her, but at the same time he's trying to look for his son primarily, and he's being attacked by the other parents that are there, Alex's parents. And we've got Alex kind of hiding upstairs who was told not to cross the salt line because, well, he was just told not to cross it. And, he's a little kid, he doesn't really understand, and he's just trying to find a way to get out because he wants to escape. And so he tries to go over the salt line, and that makes his parents start to try to attack him. So now Alex's parents are after him, and Gladys is kind of nowhere to be found because she's in a way kind of just doing her own like witchy voodoo magic and letting everybody else fight the battles for her. Justine manages to get a hold of Paul's gun, and so she takes out Paul, and she takes out. It must have been James who was going after Archer at that point because she
It
takes him
was.
out.
Because that was one of those scenes I thought was kind of drawn out and stupid. Because James like goes to attack Archer, and Archer, does basically does a move that makes him land on his butt, and then he gets back up, he tries it again, Archer does it again, makes him end up on his butt, and he does it like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. Archer manages to go to the basement and he sees all the kids and it's super dark down there. I guess there's no lights that you can turn on even if you wanted to, either that or the bulb's broken or something. So he's like using his phone flashlight to try to find one, to try to find his kid, I mean. And I think he goes upstairs for oh, he gets zombified. That's right, because I think Gladys is in the basement and she zombifies him from that way. That's what it was.
Correct. Yep. The other two
And
are dead because what's her face popped them, so now it's Archer versus um
Justine.
Justine.
Yeah, yep. But at this point, do you know Archer lives? He doesn't die, but he also doesn't like how does he snap out of it? Is it because of
So
what happens to Gladys?
I think so
Okay,
because
so
the son finds a way to use magic to control the kids and have them go after Gladys.
yeah, so she gets chased out of the house and eventually the kids pretty brutally murder her, very much like zombies, almost trying to eat her flesh, except they're not eating it. They're just trying to rip her open. Um,
Oh, I think I remember how he stops. It's so Alex, he goes back upstairs and he finds Gladys's stuff, and doesn't he do something um with her hair to break the control?
well, he
Like throws
does,
it in
and
the
that's how the
water?
kids attack her, and the parents stop attacking him. But it's weird because Archer kind of turns back into a regular person. Like he's able to talk, he's able to think for himself, whereas Alex's parents never return to an unzombified state, and neither do any of the kids. Except our little narrator girl says at the very end of the film that some of the kids started to talk again.
Right.
So it's kind of it's weird to me that Archer is just able to snap out of it, but nobody else is. And maybe it's because he wasn't controlled for very long, I guess. But
I don't know, but either way, um Alex is able to send the 17 children after Gladys, and they chase her for a while. Like they even bust through different people's houses in the process. But eventually they catch up to her. It's kind of like an R-rated version of the end of Happy Gilmore, when they're chasing him with the gold jacket. We see the kids the kids catch up to Gladys, and then they are literally ripping her piece by piece.
yep. So Gladys is the character I was saying I wish we could have seen a little bit more from. Just where did she come from? Is she really related to these people? What is her motive, in terms of making her feel better? I know Jeremy touched on it in terms of like trying to revitalize her youth, but I wish we could have heard some of her inner monologue to get a better grasp of like why is she doing what she's doing and whatnot. And to an extent, sometimes mystery, makes for a better story than knowing everything, and I get that, but I don't know. I feel like I wish I could have known more.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean that is the gist of the movie. I kind of wonder if, because we're talking about how it seemed like some of the kids became verbal again and some didn't, and what happened to the parents. Something tells me that when they were in this like zombified hypnosis, that it kind of messed with um their minds a bit, even though they, eventually get out of the spell from her dying. Uh, because in the little monologue towards the end, the little girl, she talks about how Alex's parents were institutionalized, and that Alex is now with a good aunt and not, this bad one. And like you said, some of the kids did start to verbalize again, and some did not. So I think this process messed with their brains a little bit.
Yeah.
So yes, overall, I really like this movie. The way that things played out, keeping us pulled in the whole way. I think that's ultimately what gives us that, or gives me that 10 out of 10 um, rating. I did mention in the non-spoiler section that there were some jump scares that were earned, that, that they weren't just, oh, somebody's tea is done because the kettle is screaming, and that's supposed to make you pee yourself right in the movie theater. There was a really good one I thought that was effective, and it was when we were covering Archer's story. We also see that he has nightmares about his kid being missing, and I think so it was kind of hard for us to see because we were the drive-in. And I think what he was doing is that he saw his son's bed and he saw that somebody was in it. And so he was like, "Are you home? Like, are you here?" And he goes to like pull the blanket back. And it was this creepy redheaded woman that looked like she had a insane amount of makeup, which we find out later was Gladys. So like that was a pretty effective one because I don't think at this point we had seen Gladys or had any idea that like that witch was involved. So um, m maybe you could have pieced it together from Justine's scene when there was somebody walking up to her car and took her hair. I didn't. Looking back, I could see how maybe somebody could, but
Yeah.
any other thoughts on weapons?
I feel like that wraps it up pretty well.
My hope is that this movie makes a lot of money because I think it deserves it. And maybe we'll see some other great horror movies come from the creators of this movie in the future. Fingers
Oh,
crossed.
one last thing. Sorry, I did think of something. And maybe you've, as the audience have pieced this together, but they did mention it in the film too. Gladys was turning these people into weapons. That's the point of
Yes.
the title. So, um, they, if you watch the film all the way through, you'll get to that, you'll see that. But that's kind of what the actual answer is as far as why is this movie about missing kids called Weapons?
Yeah, and also so that's not the only mention in there too. Archer says something. I don't know if you remember this, but when he was piecing together, looking at these ring cameras and seeing where these kids were running to, he had said something along the lines of, they're like ballistic weapons. They're like ballistic missiles heading in one direction to one place. And so that was kind of another, you know, they said the word kind of a thing, like the movie title. Um, yeah. And again, thinking about all these individual characters, like Archer, he was kind of going nuts thinking about where his kid was at, and maybe his mental health was kind of his weapon that was going on. The cop, he had a drinking problem. Justine, she had a drinking problem. The druggie clearly had a drug problem. So like there was a lot of individual things happening with people, but the grand scheme of what weapons was, what was going on with Gladys. So, all right. Well, that was our talk on weapons. I highly recommend seeing this movie in theaters. But if you end up seeing it on streaming as well, check it out. If you enjoyed this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Drop us a like if you liked the video, and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on weapons. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.